wanted to do a story about a Ronin. I actually, because I was a big Japanese samurai film buff, so I knew what Ronins were. I wanted to do a story about a Ronin, and I wanted to paint the art, and I wanted to do, beautiful glossy paper, and I said, okay. Went back down and said, okay, Paul, we're going to have to figure this out. And it took a lot of figuring out. It was so different from all the newsprint comics that we had published for so many years, but it's what we wanted to do. And we managed to have that happen, and that led to Dark Knight, and that led to all the comics that Jim was saying inspired him, Howie Chaykin's Shadow, and of course Watchmen, things like V for Vendetta. I mean, one comic book after another came out because we had created the culture and the fairness in which those kinds of books could flourish.
Now I'm going to make this one tougher for you, Jim. I want to... Exactly.
We don't even have this question
That's why I was known as such a cuddly leader in the organization. Always tossing the softballs for people to hit out. So take a time machine forward about another 10 years, well into the digital era of comics, and look backwards from that perspective and tell us what the first turning point is or will be for the digital time of comics for DC.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I think we're definitely in the infancy of the digital era. I mean, I was thinking the other day about my first iPod, and I think it held 5 gigabytes of material, and how clunky and heavy it was, and the devices we have today, and how that whole evolution we take for granted. So, to me, we're really at digital beta, actually, soon to be 1.0, and then 2.0. And I was just had a meeting earlier today with a guy that specializes in developing digital versions of magazines, print magazines, and just sort of blue skying on the different features you can add to comics. But I think the big change that will happen is how you guys as readers internalize the reading experience. I'm probably at a point in my life where I'm always going to prefer reading in print, that kind of tactile feel, but there will definitely be a switch in generations where people will be used to flipping their devices as they're going through a comic. I find it very disconcerting. It takes me out of the story every time I have to flip my iPad to take into account a double-page spread or whatever. And that the next generation of readers will be able to take in Twitter comments about the scenes they're actually reading as they're reading it and moving their devices and maybe having a soundtrack going, and they'll be able to sort of multi-process all this information at once. And that's kind of scary to me because that will be something I can't fully appreciate because I think I'm kind of stuck in this old school mentality. But at the same time, it's exciting to me because I think when you start thinking about what digital will be like 3-5 years from now, it ain't going to look anything like what we have today. And I think, we're really at the beginnings. Right now, there's a handful of creators that are very excited about the digital channel, but at some point, it'll sort of seep into the mainstream of creators, and they'll see all the possibilities of what they can do for different devices. And I think you'll start seeing comic books created just for the iPhone, and then just for the iPad, and then for print, and how all these different storylines will interconnect and weave a story that kind of crosses over all these different media. That said, I think they're all tools to the ultimate thing that we produce, and that is stories and entertainment, and I think that will remain constant. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay, so Jerry, you just heard Jim describing the moment in time where we know we're going somewhere, but we don't quite know where we're going. That sounds to me very much like the world of comics when you got there. When you were Bob's assistant early in the DC bullpen, arguably maybe in some ways the first comic fan, because you were the first guy who really thought the art was lovely and ought to be preserved, and much of what we've curated for museum exhibits in recent years, or for use even in the book, comes out of the collection that you lovingly preserved. And you looked ahead. What did you and the guys around dream comics could be? And what did you see as the turning points you were waiting for in that?
Well, somehow I always felt that, almost from the beginning, of course I started out to be a journalist, not a cartoonist. And I saw it was a great art form where I could combine both writing and drawing, which I attempted to do during my career. But the art, I felt, was far above what was appreciated here. The art form was appreciated in Europe. They were the first to appreciate American comics, just as they did in American jazz. And the first show I was interested in, I flew over to Paris to see the first show at the Louvre of American and European comics. Most of it was European, was American, at least half of it. And they always thought, most of the people who came to the show thought it was an indigenous art form in Europe. They didn't know that most of these features were of American origin, translated into French, Swedish, Dutch, and so forth. My wife was Norwegian, and she read Knoll and Tott in the Norwegian papers, and that was wonderful. She came to America, and she saw it in the Cats and Jammer Kids, and she thought it was Norwegian stuff. This was true all over. And so I flew over to Paris to see that show, and that, I think, inspired me even more, as I felt that the art form should be preserved in a great piece of art. So fortunately, I did preserve some of the earliest Kirby drawings, the earliest Schuster drawings, and Red Ray's classic covers, and some of my own, like the first Joker covers. And I came back and I curated a show, the first show of American comics at a fine art gallery in Madison Avenue, the Graham Gallery, and they went on a limb. Bob Graham, the owner, also felt that the comics were unappreciated as an art form. Only the Harrimans, the Goldbergs occasionally were in the museums. And so they devoted 2 floors to the collection. I put together a collection of all the genres of cartoon art, from political cartoons to comic books to comic strips and television and so forth. And it got the first review in the New York Times. On the basis of that, we brought the proposal to the Kennedy Center in Washington the following year. And we had the biggest show of cartoon ever held, I think even to this day. It was the size of about 3 football fields. One amusing thing happened. I decided to put one section of fine art that was inspired by comic idiom, and to show how comic idiom was absorbed into the fabric of American popular culture as epitomized by the great pop painters of the time, the Lichtensteins, Warhols, Ramos, and so forth. And so I put together one small collection and one section of that big show of fine art that was inspired by comic art. And Paul, you got this, I think, because I found that Ramos, I was pop artist at the time, did a painting based on the Joker. So I've got to get that one. And so I did contact Ramos, and he sent the painting in. It was insured for $350,000.
Wow.
And I hung that on one, this is back in the 70s, so that was like a billion work. On one wall, and on the facing wall, I had the cover that he took it from, of mine, of the Joker, which I think I got $100 for.
Mr. DiDio.
I learned then life was not fair.
One of the neat things you're doing now is, as you've moved into your new seat, you've been able to sit and say, you know what, I'm going to look backwards at some of the decisions over the last